You are listening to Mouth Dancing. This is episode number 74, and I'm your host, Young. Thank you so much for listening. Last week I talked briefly about that type of hairdo where you're bald on top, but then your hair is really long elsewhere. And I forgot to mention, I think those are called skullets, right? It's kind of like a mullet, but it's from, male pattern baldness on the top of your head. And then you got long hair in the back and in the sides. And I said it's kind of a badass look, right? It's kind of like an I don't give a fuck type of look. And I was thinking, which is better, mullets or skullets? And I've come to the conclusion that skullets are better than mullets, because mullets are kind of trendy, They weren't maybe 10 years ago, but at some point, people started, wearing them sort of ironically or intentionally, like this is my culture, my trailer park culture or whatever. And then, it became like a trend. And now you see it fairly frequently, and it's lost its edge. It doesn't really signify lower class white person, working class white person anymore. It just seems like a trendy thing that people do to be, try to stand out or be different. And yeah, if they wanted to really stand out though and have a really wild haircut, they should do a skullet, because that is pretty badass. Skullets are just intense, dude. You see a guy with a skullet and you just respect right away, right? I respect that dude. I guess women can have skullets too. I haven't seen it. It would be pretty cool if a woman had that haircut. But yeah, dude, rock that skullet, Makes you look pretty badass. Like maybe you're in a biker gang or something, Maybe you're some sort of a musician or artist, or maybe you're just a regular person with a really cool haircut. Maybe that's what it is. But yeah, hands down, skullets win, right? Mullets they've lost their competitive edge, and they've lost their cultural edge, and they're just not that cool anymore. At one point, it was really funny to have a mullet, and people would be like, hey, look, let's have a mullet for Halloween. I'm going to wear this funny mullet wig. And then people started actually doing that haircut. Yeah, it's probably something you get at some expensive salon now, right? Like the high fashion mullet. It'll cost you $150 to get that haircut. Another thing I wanted to talk about, which I briefly mentioned, I think last week, same time, in the same episode in which I mentioned skullets. Talked about furries briefly, right? Those people who like to dress up like animals, like horses or bunnies or whatever. They like to wear a big animal outfit, and they call themselves furries. I think sometimes there's even a sexual component to it, like they get off on it, which is kind of weird. But I was like, why does it always have to be a furry animal? How come there's no one into it who's into bald animals, right? Think about the naked mole rat. I think they're hairless. You probably don't need hair when you live underground, right? And I think moles are a lot of times blind because you don't need vision down there either, so yeah, wasn't there a community of people who like to be hairless animals? Or what about the Chinese crested dog? Have you ever seen one of those? They have a little bit of hair on their head, I think, and on their tail, but they're pretty much bald. It'd be kind of cool to see, someone dressed up like a naked mole rat or a Chinese crested dog. And that would be their thing that they're into. That would be their communities, and they could call it baldies. I think that would be actually cool, but maybe Maybe people aren't into it because it would be too similar to like human skin, where we don't have that much hair. But I think that naked mole rats and Chinese crested dogs are even more hairless than humans, because humans have some body hair, right? And those animals, I think they're pretty much just bald. And yeah, you just don't see anyone who's really got like a thing for just complete baldness, right? Maybe there are people like that out there, I just don't know about them. But that would be kind of cool to just, it would be really like a smooth experience, wouldn't it? That would probably feel better than a lot of hair, in my opinion. I'm not that big into hair. I don't know why some people are so into that. Like, they think body hair is really cool, or like facial hair. It seems kind of, I don't know, scratchy and itchy, and I don't really understand it. The look, I don't even think is that particularly cool. Like, oh, look how hairy I am. I got hair on my back and my chest, and I'm just not that impressed by it. Maybe some people think it's like a sign of manliness or high testosterone. But from what I hear, hair production comes from dihydrotestosterone or something like that, which is different from sexual testosterone, male sexual testosterone. So that's just the gist of it there, right? And lastly, I wanted to talk about the Leaning Tower of Pisa. You guys ever seen that building? It's in Italy, in a place called Pisa, and it's leaning. Somehow it stands, without falling over. I don't think they intended it to be leaning. I think it was straight at some point, but then the ground shifted or something, and it's leaning now. So when you go inside, everything's tilted. And you know the expression, right? When in Rome, do as the Romans do. So when in Pisa, when in the Leaning Tower of Pisa, do as the Leaning Tower of Pisans do, or do as the Pisans do. So when you're in Pisa, you should, always be kind of tilted at an angle a bit. You want to be just straight up, standing up like 90 degrees perpendicular to the ground, because that's not what they do there. And after a while, you'll build the muscles to be able to hold yourself in that position for a long time. Pisans are actually very well developed in that sense, like their musculature is adapted to that. Like, in Tibet, they're really adapted to high altitudes. Pisans are adapted to, being on uneven ground and not being straight up and down all the time when they're standing. So you have to adapt to the culture around you, the place where you are. Kind of reminds me of that REM song, right? Stand in the place where you live. Something, something, wonder why you have it. Stand in the place where you work. Something, think about direction, wonder why you have it. Yeah, well, that's about it for this episode. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in again, and I'll see you next time. Bye.